Hey, all right.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
All right, fantastic. Well, everyone, hello and welcome to The Harvest, where we discuss everything cinema and story. And as we learn, you learn. As we grow, you grow. My name is Xavier Garcia.
And I'm Jonathan Garcia.
And you are in episode number 29. We spent about 3 episodes now just digging into the actions, the behavior, the preparations, even the mind of the actor. 3 episodes, 26, 27, and 28. We had a good time.
Longer than I expected, but I mean, acting is a lot. It's heavy. So.
It is a deep subject, so deep that we even got into talking about the method and the psychological effects of the method this past episode when we interviewed psychologist Bobby Bishop. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. I learned a lot in that interview. It was great.
So this week, we are going to talk about actors, but not in the way that you might think. We've been talking a lot about some of the more practical and pragmatic factors involved in the actor-to-character relationship. You know, things like prep, being a professional, empathy, techniques, line memorization, all of those really practical things, blocking, etc. Yeah. But today, we're going to weave into our discussion how the script itself informs the actor in ways beyond just the logos word on the page. Everyone within the filmmaking machine has a unique relationship to the script, right? Director's relationship to the script is going to look a little different than the DP's relationship to the script. Everybody looks at it through their own purview, their own perspective, because everybody's got a job to do, right?
Yeah, and you'll hit a gold mine when they're both in sync.
That's when beauty happens in filmmaking.
Yeah.
But there isn't a relationship to the script like the relationship that the actor has to that screenplay. It's very unique. An actor is immersed in the study of character-specific circumstances, conflicts, motivations, and objects of desire, right? As well as that becoming notion. They have to become that character. They have to embody, they have to represent something, someone, an idea that serves a very specific purpose, and that's the telling of a story. This is a very unique relationship, unlike any other.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the actor-character relationship, it's a tricky one. It really is a tricky one. So much goes into the embodiment of a character and the presentation of real, authentic personas on screen that oftentimes directors agree, majority of directors will agree that in when making a movie, casting is the single most important milestone in the filmmaking process. Casting.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese famously says, I don't know if have you checked out the master classes?
Yes, I have.
Did you check out Scorsese's?
I watched a few of his. I've jumped around. There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
There's so many good directors there. And I did watch his opening
He's
monologue
so chill.
Well.
He's sitting at a theater. Yeah. He's just kind of talking. And he says something that a lot of actors agree upon. You know, he says directing is 90% casting. And that notion is supported by people like Robert Altman. You got John Ford, Elia Kazan, countless others. His exact quote, I'm going to look at my notes. His exact quote says, "I always say that casting is 85 to 90% of the picture for me. So all of you just starting out, insist on what you want and don't settle for close enough or second best." And so he's talking to the importance of the right actor for the right role, and casting the right actor for the right role is essentially like the movie is done, right?
Yeah. I mean, to him, 90%, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's huge. That says a lot about how he feels, how important the actor is to the telling of the story. Now, the reason here is that very few actors are just right for the very specific character that you've created. It's not like you create a character and anyone can play it, right? If a character is well written, well thought out, well planned out, there's a strong arc to the character. You can see the change. The conflicts that are antagonizing this character are formidable, and the character is then therefore he has to make choices, and these choices are revealing of character. If that's how well thought out this is, then not just any actor is going to do that character justice, right? And there's a lot that goes into the casting process when a director is looking at this. The director is looking at this actor, who's doing their reel, or they're looking at a reel, or they're looking at an audition tape, or a live audition, and they're discerning, is this guy or girl the right person for this job? What are the types of things that they're looking for? I mean, they're looking for sensibility.
Right. A lot of times they look for just looks. Looks. The appearance is, that plays the role. It's the choosing of a role. I mean, there has to be hundreds of questions that need to be asked.
There's a ton of things, yeah.
And for a lot of times, sometimes people choose roles based on, like a recent film that they did, and then they're banking off of, the hype on the previous work. But there's so much that goes on to casting.
Yeah,
and movies fail and succeed in that area.
Right, absolutely. And then when the director is making this choice, beyond just looks, sensibilities, I mean, they're also trying to understand, does this actor really understand the story? Does he empathize with the character?
Right.
Does he relate with the character in a way where it's genuine and believable? And then there's also that gut feeling, right? You just know if the person that you're seeing is the right person or not.
Right.
And you can't put words to that. You just have like this, I don't know, like a gut feeling, right? Like,
yeah, I think about when Mel called Jim Caviezel. And like what out of all the actors in Hollywood, like
for Passion of the Christ,
for the Passion, like he felt like that's the guy who I want as Jesus. I mean, to play Jesus in a movie is a serious thing, and it's like, you've never seen a movie like it. The hundreds of Jesus played in movies, but like he knew that he would nail that role because he had that feeling inside. So yeah, sometimes it comes like that.
I really wonder what that conversation was like. I know he did say, it's well documented that he says, you're going to do this, it's going to be awesome, but you're never going to work in Hollywood again.
Right. Yeah. And he was right.
To a certain degree, Jim Caviezel has had to like work overtime and work extra hard in order to kind of step out from the shadow of Jesus. How do you step out from the shadow of Jesus, right? It's something that you want to do spiritually. But anyway, so having said that, though, that casting process is super important. And when you fail, when that casting process crumbles and you fail, you get movies like The Amazing Spider-Man, and you get Jamie Foxx as Electro.
Yeah,
Jamie Foxx as
Electro. You get a lot of. I mean, there's so many movies.
Give me another example. Where there's a failed casting process, where where you're just like, oh man, they really fumbled.
It's funny.
This.
A lot of comic book movies.
A ton.
Have there's a list of them. Like I know we talked about Daredevil, Ben Affleck. That was,
Actually, both of them were badly casted.
Yeah.
Not just him, but what's her name? Garner. She was she ended up becoming Elektra, right? In it, like she was Jennifer. Both of them cast in that film were a bad cast. That's when you tend to wonder, was it bad cast or was it just a bad script?
Right.
That movie should not have been made.
Question. How do you know? It's as a lot of times good directors, good DPs can notice these things when they're watching a movie. They're like, oh, that's a script problem versus a actor's problem. So, but there's a lot of them. Yeah. Star Wars.
Who in Star Wars? Be careful. Oh,
I know.
Episode 2 and 3.
We have Hans.
The bane of Hans' existence.
Yeah. So it destroyed. It destroyed the love for that role, that character.
Jared Leto as the Joker. Right, it's like, how do you come off of seeing Heath Ledger as the Joker to then him trying to reinvent the character as a sociopath? It just didn't work.
Yeah.
Jared Leto just didn't work as the Joker, and he felt as though it did. I think he was really passionate about the amount of work that he put into that character, that he felt slighted when he wasn't re-invited back to the role, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think a while back ago I watched this movie, and I just think of that one scene with Mark Wahlberg in The Happening. He's in the classroom. So what do you talk about bees? Hey, bees.
Does anybody know? Is anybody
Where the
wondering
bees
what
go?
happened to the bees? I know. I love Mark.
I mean, he's a great. He's a great
homegrown.
actor.
He's from Boston.
Yeah, I mean, he has his movies, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, a good.
It wasn't his fault.
Director,
it's a casting situation.
It's a casting problem.
Yes, that was a casting problem. Good.
Because
Good.
I thought he was brilliant in Departed.
Yes.
I thought he was brilliant in Departed.
Oh gosh.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And his
some
role.
people wonder, was he just being Mark or
Right,
but yeah,
still,
I mean,
I
he was
think
phenomenal in it.
It was great.
It was phenomenal. And then you've got some really tragic situations that have come about as a result of bad casting. I think that any director or any cinephile, anyone that you ask that knows movies, when they're talking about this topic of bad casting, the number one, the one at the top for everybody on everybody's list is John Wayne in The Conqueror, 1956 The Conqueror. He played the role of Genghis Khan, and so many things, so many terrible things happened as a result, like, of this movie. Like, they filmed right next to, like, a nuclear reactor, I think it was, or they some place that was essentially emitting radioactive, like, waste, and 90 people from that cast and crew died as a result of cancer that they got from having worked so close to that plant, that facility, including John Wayne. Wow. John Wayne, that movie, The Conqueror, is quoted as the film that killed John Wayne, because he ended up getting cancer and dying. Now, that's not the reason why it was a bad casting. It's not like, we lost John Wayne, because losing anyone is tragic. But when you watch that movie, after the second scene, he completely gives up the whole notion of trying to be Genghis Khan, of trying to be this, like, Mongolian ruler, and he literally just reverts back to being old Western John Wayne. And you're like, when was Genghis Khan a gun-wielding Western? It's actually pretty bad. And he says that was one of his biggest regrets for the role that he took, because he was completely unprepared for it. It was a bad casting. I think at the time, people were like, John Wayne is gold.
Right.
Put him in anything.
Right.
And you're gonna make money,
right? And that's one of the reasons why, when you choose a bad actor, that's usually like on the top of the problems, where it's because they're so
when there's a
hyped.
bad casting situation, it's because it's a great actor and you think money.
Exactly. He just did
Blockbuster.
He just did Fast and Furious. Let's use him for the pacifier.
Oh, Vin Diesel. Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
He's hot right now. Like,
you know what?
Han's
you know who happens?
So hot right now.
He's so hot right now. You know who that happens to a lot? Will Smith.
Yeah.
Will Smith had the reputation of being, like, he had a
July.
nickname, the 4th of July blockbuster Will Smith.
Yeah.
Like, any movie in the summer that you put Will Smith on is going to be big time money. Mm-hmm. That was his reputation. And then, this wasn't immediate, like Gemini Man, I'm talking about, like, this was recent. There were a couple of flops in between now and then. Like, I'm not even going to talk about the movie that he did with his son. I've literally blocked even the title from my memory. Yeah. What is it? When he's like the last man, him and his son. Not the last man on Earth. That one was actually pretty good. When him and his son are on an uninhabitable planet, or I don't even know. But anyway, I that's been blocked. Like, I have.
You trying to bring it back?
No, let's not. But in Gemini Man had its writing flaws. Gemini Man had its plot flaws. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. It was rough.
It was rough.
I think the allure and the attraction to Gemini Man was, like, filmed at 120 frames per second. It's new technology. The CGI is going to be amazing, and they were trying to make, and it's Will Smith. Yeah. So they tried to put all of that together and make it the summer blockbuster, but it just wasn't cast right. The script had problems, and you've got, unfortunately, what you got.
Right.
And there's one other one. Out of all the Rocky movies, which one's the one that stands out for just being terrible?
Rocky 5.
Yeah, Rocky 5. Why?
What's his name? Machine Gun.
Yes. Say no more. Tommy the Machine Gun. Tommy the Machine Gun.
Yeah.
And that's another situation where here's this up and coming boxer, Tommy Morrison, I think is his name. He's an up-and-coming heavyweight. He ended up beating, he went 12 rounds toe-to-toe with George Foreman. Ended up beating him. Like, so here's this up-and-coming boxer, larger than life. And he's bankable. He's making a ton of money, in the ring.
Right.
And so let's cast him in the Rocky movie.
Yeah.
And you got the
They
disaster.
basically wrote
that is
a
Rocky
movie
5.
kind of just wanting him around him. And when you do that, that leads for a disaster.
It was sad. And not to mention just kind of like the story, his own story and his own life story was really sad. It's like a 20-year-old that's, all of a sudden, like night and day, he's given fame and fortune and money, and he just can't handle it and ends up, dying as a result of HIV and all that, But like there's another situation where, Hollywood's eyes grew larger than their stomachs, right? And they didn't necessarily look to the art, to the story, to the implications even of casting this young boy. Like, none of that. They looked past all of that. They were looking at the money, and they were like, let's put him in. And
it's interesting.
So much disaster.
A lot of 90s was like that. The 90s was like that. The 80s and the 80s, 90s, it was like this, blockbuster. Just get the actor because his name is big,
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. Now, I have a question for you. Because we've answered a ton of the questions that we had written down in our notes. Is this a lot of these failures? Are they bad casting or is it bad writing? We sometimes it's a mixture of both. Oftentimes it's bad casting. If you were to ask Scorsese, he would say 90% of the time it's bad casting. But sometimes it's bad writing. However, can a great actor salvage bad writing? Yes, always, or not always? What would you say? Yes, always, a great actor can salvage bad writing, or not always?
Those are my only two.
Yeah, because I don't know that it's necessarily...
Then I would actually lean on yes, always.
Really?
Yes. Here, a great actor...
Yeah.
A great actor, I think that's... A great actor... gosh. Here's why I believe yes, always. Because... Well, not that... Because remember, you only gave me two options. Yeah. Yes, always.
Right. Well, okay. You go ahead. You give me the option that you would say.
I would say so. If the actor is given the freedom to fully express the role, then yes. So what I mean by this is if the role is written...
So like if he ignores the script?
Right. So if it's Spielberg, right? I'm the director. This is also... I wrote this movie. You have to stick to it. That's kind of his way. Stick to it. He's got crew that have, the Spielberg's crew they have that one job. They have to get it done, and that's it. There's no, let's take a day to, shoot a new angle, and that's what I've been hearing, right? If the actor's given the freedom to kind of, express himself, kind of like how we spoke earlier about Leonardo in Once Upon a Time
in Hollywood,
right?
Yeah.
And where he was discussing.
Same thing with Heath
Quentin.
Ledger, yeah. Where
exactly. Where
they had an idea.
Let me play with this a little
bit. Give
bit.
me the camera. Let me take this scene.
Remember, the script is complete. He has to follow along the script as long as he can bring his.
But that's unfair.
Style.
That's Quentin Tarantino writing. So the script was probably already
right. No,
Quentin Tarantino.
But I'm just saying if it's a bad script and the actor let's say I'm trying to think of two movies or a movie where it's a bad script. All right, so I think Gemini Man was a bad script.
Okay.
Would it be
and
a
Will
bad
Smith
script?
is a good actor, though. So did Will Smith elevate the bad script?
I wouldn't say he's a great actor. I think he's a good actor.
Okay.
Here's a great actor.
Will Smith, Pursuit of Happiness? Come on. That was a
great role to be in.
Okay, no, you're right.
Great role to be in.
You're right. That was the marriage of the
Ali,
right actor.
Great role to be in.
The right actor, the right role.
And the right
okay,
role.
All right, I'll give you that.
So, Daniel Day-Lewis and Gemini Man. Would he have done it in his prime? Can't say now because he's older, because he wouldn't be casted now. But him as an actor,
I can't even see that. Daniel Day-Lewis and Gemini Man.
I don't know. It wouldn't be.
He wouldn't even have taken it though. That's the point.
That's the
he
thing.
wouldn't take it.
That's hard. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to say yes.
I wouldn't say yes.
I would say leaning more towards yes, only because I feel as though if the actor can express himself and be able to add to the role.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So here's where I'll agree and I'll disagree. I think an actor can help a bad script, But if a bad script is bad, a great actor can't save it.
Say that again, please,
Okay,
so the audience can hear it.
So I think a great actor can help a bad script, but a great actor can't save like a dead script. Like
Sure. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
it doesn't matter. It's kind of
Like, you can't save
it's like
the movie.
Basically, yeah. Like basically, like if the script is crap, no matter how much like potpourri you try to spray on it, it's not gonna change it to
I love your
gold.
analogy.
Like,
Here's my analogy.
I'm sorry.
Here's my analogy.
You can spray all the Daniel Day-Lewis you want on a pile of dung, and it's still gonna be a pile of dung.
Yeah, but okay, I understand what you're saying. I think you're right in the fact that the film probably will not be salvaged. But I'll tell you, they will always remember how that person
Took that role. Okay, fine.
And the movie wouldn't be as as much of a failure as you expected.
Can you think of, this is off the, like, we didn't have any notes for this, so I'm just going to ask you off the top, can you think of a bad film where there was one actor that had a phenomenal performance and you only remember that actor, but you're like, but the film is garbage?
Gosh, I mean,
I know. We didn't prep this.
Let's come back to it. All
right.
I think that's a great question.
Okay.
I think if the audience has something, put it on the comments below.
Yeah.
And I'd love to discuss.
Yeah, I'd love to hear if you can think of a bad movie.
Yeah.
Where everyone was garbage, but then there's this one actor who's just like, but he was awesome. He's memorable, or she was awesome. She's memorable, and you remember the film for that person's role, but you're like, but I would never watch it again. Or for that person's character, but you never watch it again.
Great. See, here's my analogy.
I feel like some of the Star Wars films fall into that category.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, here's my analogy. So you said putting spraying poopery on poop. I see it like this. I kind of see an actor being a very beautiful person, right?
Okay.
And the role is like dressing up that beautiful person like a bum, just ugly, absolutely like dressing them up terrible. There are some individuals that
they still look good.
They still look good, even if you make them super ugly dressed up. You know what I mean?
No, you can make someone. I mean, we talking prosthetics and stuff, because you can make
right. That's how far does it go, right?
Yeah.
A few teeth gone and stuff like
all
that.
All right, let's move forward. We could
be here all day.
Well, yeah, we could be talking about this all day. Now, the flip side of that is, can brilliant, phenomenal, award-winning screenwriting overcome bad casting and bad casting choices?
Can great screenwriting overcome?
So you've got a bad actor, or just an actor that doesn't belong in that film, doesn't belong in that role, but it's a brilliant screenplay. It's a brilliant film.
This one's tough because this one's even harder than the last one, because
I think
the
so
screenplay, to have a successful screenplay.
Well, it could be a successful movie. It could be a successful movie,
okay.
and then you're like, but that actor inside of it, man, they were bad, but the movie was still successful. I think that can be possible.
The movie was successful, it hit, it did well in the box office.
Box
or
office
to
successful,
you visually,
and,
it did well,
well,
you enjoyed it.
I think critically acclaimed.
Oh,
so it does well with critics. It does well with the Academy, whatever that means. It's rated well, it's reviewed well, and it's also box office well. Can bad casting choices be averted, or rather, can tragedy be averted if it's a great screenplay? I would say yes. My thought on that is that if it's a great screenplay, phenomenal screenplay, and obviously, so you have to also have a good director.
Who's the role?
Yeah, you have to have a good director.
So, for instance, I think it depends on
if it's a lead.
If it's a lead role and the lead role person is terrible actor, I think the movie's gonna fall apart.
Okay,
because they drive the story.
I've got an example. Hans brought this up earlier. The new Mad Max Fury Road. Max Fury Road. Brilliant screenplay, brilliant directing. Charlize Theron did a fantastic job in it. But Tom Hardy just didn't bring to the Mad Max character what Mel Gibson brought. It fell flat.
So
that just wasn't an awesome casting choice. He was like looks down at the ground Tom Hardy.
Well, the thing about it, actually, I was just reading up on this and doing a study. So as much as I agree a lot of disagree with Hans, he's a very good film critic. There's that website, the screenwriting website. It's Pink. I'm blanking off the top of my head.
Pink?
Yeah, it's there's a screen program. I'll think off the top of my head when I get. But they talked about Tom Hardy in that role, and they said that in that film specifically, they wanted to make sure that the dialogue was almost not there. It was show, don't tell type film. That was what the director intended for the movie.
Okay.
To show, don't tell. And so 90% of Tom Hardy's lines are are grunts. You know what I mean? And so it's like
which is
right, which is difficult because when lines are the life to the character, they allow you to.
We're gonna get there. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
They allow you to
yes.
show range
Yes.
to the individual or
Yes.
to the role.
Yeah, they
Now,
define
there's-
characteristics.
I mean, you can have the subtleties and the movements and the actions that show. Wow, he's a great actor. But when lines are put in, there's range now to the character.
Yeah, there's depth.
There's depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think for Tom Hardy, it was hard for that role to be bigger than what it could have been. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's about the world. It's about the environment. It's about what's going on. And the story. I mean, they capture.
Yeah, but Jonathan, you say that, right? But I'm going to give you another example. Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
In Sicario.
Okay.
Roger Deakins famously talks about the fact that he was literally writing out lines. He was taking lines out of his dialogue because he's like, I don't need to say that, I just acted, right? And you were watching similar type of situation where removing lines because it could be acted, and Benicio was brilliant in Sicario.
And that's true. Yeah,
it was like he was cast for that role perfectly. It couldn't have been anybody else except for Benicio del Toro. Yeah, the interrogation scene.
Yeah,
exactly. It couldn't have been anybody else. Whereas with Mad Max, I think someone else in that position, even though the director was trying to minimize the lines and then have it be more about the visual story that's told, I just think it was a brilliant screenplay where a casting faux pas.
But we're talking
did not bring down the whole movie.
So we're talking about,
can a great screenplay and screenwriting overcome a bad casting choice? And what I'm saying is that I think almost always great screenplays can overcome bad casting choices. If it's like one or two, not if like the entire movie is just a disaster of casting.
Yeah, right.
Like if they're just putting a bunch of like lizards and monkeys to that, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard question. I think again this is another one great for the audience to see.
Throw
if
them in
they
the
can
notes.
Figure out a great screenplay, a great film, but it was poorly casted.
Now there are those films, and we've brought some up, where the actor and character is a match made in heaven. You get those. Those are rare. Those are like. Those are diamonds in the rough. You don't find those all the time. Yeah. Sometimes now this happens sometimes because the screenwriter is writing specifically with that actor in mind.
Yeah.
And then they go after that actor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already written the nuances of that actor and everything. And so when that happens, okay, but that's easy. That's not what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're not necessarily talking about those times. We're talking about the times where the writer just writes a character, not necessarily with that actor in mind, and they're just focused more so in creating a character, and then the casting director sees this and reads it, and they're like, this is the person. We're going to go after this person, this actor, and it's a match made in heaven, and you're just like, oh, this is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. No one else could have pulled off this role. Can you give me some examples of films where you're like, nobody else?
Yeah, we discussed this one off camera. We talked about Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man.
That's like almost the top.
Yeah, everyone knows.
You know why that's the top though?
Yeah.
Because he gave life to this multi-billion-dollar franchise.
Yeah, right.
If it hadn't have been because let's be honest, Marvel movies had been done before Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. You know, like you have had, you know, like X-Men came out before that. You know, like you had other attempts at superhero movies, but when the right person filled the right role, it gave life to an entire universe. Mm-hmm. And Robert Downey Jr. literally built what today sits as the most lucrative financial movies and series of movies of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those movies that, like, I mean, the Endgame, like all those, you know, Avengers movies, they've all broken box office records.
Yeah, let's break down the list.
All right, we got, you know which one? This one always gets me. There's a special place in my heart for this movie, The Green Mile. Yeah. You remember The Green Mile with Tom Hanks?
Of course I do.
Michael Clark Duncan as the angel, essentially, in The Green Mile, this giant of a man, but this gentle giant, where he says, he's like, John Coffey, it's like glass, just inside my mind. I mean, like those lines, like, oh man, and him, just no one else could have pulled the role that he pulled as this, you know, during this time of intense racism, you know, in southern United States, in the small prison where this man is condemned to death, and he's the scapegoat, you know, and being wrongfully accused, but he comes in as like an angel almost in a condemned space.
I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, I could think of somebody.
Who?
I could think of somebody if it was bigger, though.
Who?
Oh my gosh! It just
give me some movies that this person.
Whitaker, Forrest Whitaker. I could see him maybe doing.
I'll maybe give you Forrest Whitaker. He's got this like. I don't even know.
But I feel like he would need to be like bigger, like you know what I mean?
It's Forrest Whitaker's face. It's like you can't help but feel bad for him.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go there, but like he's got this.
But I know what you mean. There are characters that like you can't see anyone outside of that role.
Michael Clark Duncan, man,
yeah.
That's got to be one.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Heath Ledger, Joker.
Yep.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean everyone. No one's. I mean, you know, Joaquin Phoenix. To me personally, I feel like that's just a different awesome Joker.
Yeah, that's different. That's
you know what I mean? It's
Joker.
Like
he created something else.
Awesome Joker.
Yeah.
And that was cool for me.
No, but like the Joker as like the Joker versus Batman.
Right.
Definitely Heath Ledger. Definitely. He killed it.
We got some good ones.
Since we're doing superhero movies. So this one is actually really funny because there's 2 in 1. So Deadpool. The character of Deadpool by Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds got the opportunity to play Deadpool twice, right? In Wolverine's origin, he was the Deadpool, remember, with the mouth that was closed and he had the swords, and he hated that Deadpool. He was like, that was an atrocity. Yeah. And then the reinvention of Deadpool, the new Deadpool, the rated R Deadpool, you know, Ryan Reynolds is known for being smart mouth, you know, like being this like witty, quick, you know, talk. And that's what Deadpool is. And the marriage between this Deadpool comic book character and Ryan Reynolds, done the right way, made Deadpool to the point where he goes back. Doesn't he go back and he kills the old Deadpool?
Oh, no, kills the old Deadpool.
Yeah, he goes back in like the deleted scenes, and because he makes fun of that role. That old Deadpool was terribly cast.
Yeah.
You think about it. You covered the mouth of Ryan Reynolds.
Developed. You
covered the mouth of Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan Reynolds is the guy with the mouth. Like that's what he's known for, a guy with the mouth. But then they gave him a guy with a covered mouth. Like you don't cast the guy with the mouth to be the guy that doesn't speak. Yeah. Like that's such a bad casting choice. And yet,
or script really too, because they didn't give them the freedom. So it's quite a few things.
But that brings up another character, because that old Deadpool came from Wolverine Origins. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. Mm-hmm. Who do you see as Wolverine?
Yeah.
Who's gonna take over the franchise as Wolverine? Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Who else is Wolverine?
No one right now.
I mean, he solidified himself as the Wolverine after Logan.
Mm-hmm.
After he did Logan, people were like, they wanted more on Wolverine.
Yeah, I know. I have one that my wife likes.
Who you got?
Legally Blonde.
Yeah,
Reese Witherspoon.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't. You know what I mean? I could.
Brilliant screenplay. Brilliant script.
Yeah.
Brilliant script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see. I can't see really anyone playing that role. That was her role.
I was watching The Office the other day, and it was the episode when Michael Scott comes in, and Pam is like, I could always tell what kind of movie, what movie Michael Scott has seen based on the way he's acting. He was doing the Devil Wears Prada.
Oh yeah,
you know that episode. And when I thought about that, right.
Yeah.
And when I thought about that, I thought that's right.
Yeah,
Meryl Streep, no one else
No.
could have been Miranda Priestley.
No.
one else but Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
That's a brilliantly casted one.
That was well done.
Well, who else you got?
Gosh, I mean,
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
You could just throw them in
we
there.
could be here all day.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned actually when we were back there talking the role that Monique had in Precious and how. What's awesome is
that did
like,
something to me, man.
You know,
That movie.
when a character, when an actor is in the right role, things come out that the director probably would have never known.
Yeah.
Which gives that person be like, I can't see anyone else, and I'm so thankful that you have this role.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
That
Yeah.
movie like shook me. And the role that Monique put into that. I mean, she was like. No one else could have done what she did. I don't think anyway.
Any honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions. I don't know. So Uma Thurman as the bride. You know, like in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill.
Yeah.
You know, like you always think of like that yellow Bruce Lee suit. Like you and Uma Thurman just comes to mind. You can't think of anyone else. Like she was made for that. Sigourney Weaver in Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Like who else would have played that person? Speaking of like those types of franchises, what's the name of the actress that did Sarah Connor for Terminator? What's her name? Linda Hamilton. Linda Hamilton. Linda Hamilton is Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
So much so that when they were finally going back to doing the most recent one, they had to like bring her out of retirement because nobody else could be Sarah Connor. And Arnold as the Terminator.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions. You know which one is a fun one? Holds a special place in my heart. Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly.
That's why it hasn't been made.
Doc!
That's why it's never been
nobody
made.
else could go, Doc! You know,
Touch
like,
that.
And nobody can do 1.21 gigawatts the same way that Christopher Lloyd did it. Those two, like, they were made for those parts. And when you think about them as actors, you think about just those roles. Because like, what other role can you think of Christopher Lloyd in except for Doc Brown?
No.
Or even Michael J. Fox. I mean, like, you don't even think about his TV. You don't think about him as Teen Wolf. You don't think about any of that. You think about him as Marty McFly.
Yeah. No.
And the Enchantment Under the Sea. And
Oh, you mentioned one, Gene Wilder.
Yes.
In Willy Wonka.
And that's actually a really good example of many who have tried and have failed.
Yes.
That has been remade to the detriment of cinema. I'm a fan of Johnny Depp, but it was Johnny Depp, right, that did the new one. And I'm a fan of Johnny Depp's quirkiness, especially when he works with who's the one famous director that he always works with, where he did Edward Scissorhands with, and all of the
and the Christmas.
Yes. The
creepy movies.
Yeah. He's worked with. Yeah, he's done all those. But anyway, Tim Burton. Yeah, like Tim Burton has a way of bringing out of Johnny Depp like the weirdness of Johnny Depp, and and he does phenomenal in certain roles. But then there's other roles, like you see him as the Lone Ranger. You see him in the Lone Ranger, and you're
Tonto.
like,
yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
And my last honorable mention, if we want to go back to the westerns, you've got Clint Eastwood, John Wayne. Like, they define westerns.
Right.
You can't see anyone else in any western. Oh, and I have one movie where every single actor, everyone was perfectly cast. Everyone. Can you think of it? Where is there any movie where you're like, there was no error anywhere? Lord of the Rings. Every single actor in that movie is that character.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom,
Yeah.
Elijah Wood, all of them. All of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. That's true.
Because, like, think about it. You think about all of them and all of their careers, and you always default back to Lord of the Rings. Now, sometimes you have to ask yourself, is that because the movie was so larger than life and it transcended everyone's career? Or is it because they were so perfectly cast for it? Or do they work together? I think the reason why the film was so transcendent and so big and so large is because it was such excellent casting.
I think that's it. I think that the casting, they did a very good job in that film.
All right, let's move forward because we could be talking about movies all we could get stuck.
You can think of like Sean Astin. I would have never picked him for that role, but it was perfect.
It was perfect for him. Yeah,
I would have never picked him for that role. That's why
Mr. Frodo. It's him. It's him. Okay, now it's not always possible to get that kind of a marriage between actor and character. It doesn't always work out that brilliantly. When it does, you get the classics. Mm-hmm. But when it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily mean that the film is doomed, because I feel like there's the perfect actor for that perfect role, and then there's kind of like a realm of other actors that can potentially also do it, but there's always one that stands out, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can't always get the standout one. Like, for example, you're gonna write a movie. We're writing a movie. We're working on a movie, and we've got our list of actors that we want, mm-hmm. right? As we're working on Wade in the Water, we've got our list for our protagonists and who we want so and so. There's a myriad of reasons why we might not be able to get so-and-so. Money, contractual issues, scheduling, crew choices. I mean, there's a ton of reasons why. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the other pool, you can't find another person that is going to be maybe not the perfect, not the 10, but like the 8 or the 9, mm-hmm. right? You can. Now, I want you to think about 8 and 9s. 8 and 9s in films. Now, when these situations,
you wouldn't want me to, but
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You say don't compromise. Now, when these situations come up and the film is decently cast, mm-hmm. with an 8 or a 9, right? That's actually pretty good cast. Yeah. It may not be the 10, but that's a good cast. There are certain cues, certain clues. There are like gems and pieces of information that the actor can pick up from the writing, mm-hmm. in the script, mm-hmm. in order to become the character, in order to deliver a genuine performance. The reason why it's an 8 or it's a 9 is because that actor is both well trained to be able to pick those things up, but there's something personal about them that connects them to that, right? To that character. Mm-hmm. Now, these cues, these clues, these gems, these little things that are put into the screenplay that an actor can find and can look for and study. In Robert McKee's book, Dialogue, he wrote it in 2016. He identifies 3 elements of what character says and does that are foundational to the expression of thought, desire, and feeling, while shaping the expressions in gesture and in words, mm-hmm. right? So McKee breaks it down into the said, the unsaid, and the unsayable, right? Okay. And I have a direct quote from the book. He says, in page 46, he says, "The innermost sphere churns with the unsayable. The middle sphere restrains the unsaid. The outer sphere releases the said." Mm-hmm. So the innermost sphere churns with the unsayable, the middle sphere restrains the unsaid, and the outer sphere releases that which is said. So the said, right? The said is the surface layer of things that are said. The logos. Right. Yeah. The word on the page. The word on, right? The character's dialogue. But that can be broken down into connotations and denotations, right? So denotations are what's primary. It's what's explicit. It's the meaning of what's being said, right? So if the word snake, well, what is a snake? A snake is a reptile with no legs. That's the denotation. But in American culture, when you call someone a snake, what's the meaning behind that?
Right.
What is that? Like when they're
like
skeevy, they're
sneaky,
evil, sneaky.
Yeah.
They've got bad intentions,
Yeah.
a con man, you know. Or here's another one. That's the connotation. The connotation when you call someone a snake, there's a meaning behind it. You're not just calling him a reptile with no legs. You're calling him something underneath. Or here's another one. Here's one that's common today. Like we used to say it in football, right? Well, first I'll give you the denotation. A house. What's a house?
Building that people live in.
A structure that you live in, right? Yeah, it's got a front door, it's got a back door, you got bedrooms, kitchen, blah blah blah. That's a house. But if you were on the football field, right, and you just ran through the linebacker, and I will call you, he's a house. What am I saying?
He's big man.
He's a beast. He's huge. Like. Or he's protective, you know, like you can't get through him, you know, because there's a level, you know, like that, and that's the connotation behind it. And there's a ton of words that are like that. You know, you've got the denotation and you've got the connotation. And so when sometimes there's a lot more to the word that's being used than just what you're reading, right? So like if the dialogue says that guy's a snake, you know that there's more than just the word that's on the page. There's cultural influences, you know, there's pop cultural influences. There's a ton infused into the writing that the actor has to read, discern, understand. They pick up on those cues in order to build character. Like for example, let's go back to The Devil Wears Prada. Emily Blunt plays the character of Emily Charlton in The Devil Wears Prada. And in that movie, she says a line. She says, I am just one stomach flu away from my goal weight. That's her line. I'm just one stomach flu away from my goal weight. Now, on the surface level, you read that, and you're like, well, what is she actually saying? She's giving this line, and she's talking to... the intern, girl that just started her job. I'm forgetting the actress's name.
It'll
come to me eventually. Okay. But anyway, they're having a dialogue back and forth. And she's,
Anne Hathaway.
Yes. And she says, "I'm just one stomach flu away from my ideal goal, my goal weight." Now, there's a ton that's laced into that line. There's a ton of it. There are specific vocabulary choices that were made. There's diction choices. There's going to be syntax choices. There's grammar choices. There's accent choices. There are cultural influences that are baked into the line in and of itself. All of it is telling of characteristics. And this jigsaw, when you put this together and you sew this together, you start to build personality. You start to build character, right? Now, when you've built this personality and the marriage between actor and character is finally solidified, some of the most amazing moments in film occur. Moments of improvisation. Now, these aren't really improvisations, right? It's not really improvisations. Really what it is just, it's the character that's exploding through the page, right? And coming alive right before your very eyes, right before the lens. Because what's happened is that the actor has studied and they've brought the meaning out of what's on that page in such a way, they have now such a manipulation, they have an ability with the character to understand what the character is saying, the cultural influences and how to say it, that improv happens. And it isn't because it's improv, it's because it's just the character coming alive, right? And we've got some famous examples of that. Like, for example, we were just talking about the Quentin Tarantino scene where Leonardo DiCaprio, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio is like, the script has been written, and you know how Quentin Tarantino is about his scripts. He's like, every word, every word is gold. Is gold. You know, like, this is my word and it's gold. And so Leonardo DiCaprio had an idea for an extension to a scene to show like his struggles with himself as a failed actor and his struggles as an alcoholic. And in that scene, he he approaches Tarantino with this idea, like, I want to do this, and Tarantino's like, no, absolutely not. DiCaprio does it. Tarantino sees it. The entire thing was improv. Leo is just going nuts, just going wild, like, I drink too much, and he's throwing glasses, he's throwing the flask, he's going crazy, he's making fun of himself, he's like, I'm a baboon, blah, 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 and it was just Leonardo DiCaprio improvising. But when you watch that scene, you're like, that's Andy Dalton just like having a crisis. It wasn't Leo, it was Andy Dalton having a crisis, literally confronting himself in the mirror, threatening himself that he's going to kill himself if he doesn't get it together and quit drinking. And it was brilliant. And it was because it was perfectly cast. Because there's that issue. Like, it was cast well with Leo, and then Leo took the said and how it was said, he broke it down, he understood the character, and he delivered something that was above and beyond what was on the page.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in cinema.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I was saying earlier, I mean, sometimes when they're given the ability to express themselves and to take a role, and here's a scenario where it's brilliant writing, brilliant actor, that person taking it to the next level, it creates moments that will be remembered forever.
Forever. Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver.
Yep.
He's like, you talking to me? And he's got the gun, and he starts to like that whole improv. That was him. Now, granted, Scorsese encourages this with his actors.
Sure, yeah.
But it's one thing encouraging it, and it's another thing like pulling it off, and then it appearing in the final film, and that was something that is now one of like the most famous lines. We put that in a spoof. You remember? We put that in a spoof to Fearless Frank. Isn't that what it was?
Yeah,
like
an old skit we did.
It was a little old skit way back. We put that in. You talking to me? We also did the Clint Eastwood, there are lines that are moments of improvisation, like, Joe Pesci, in Goodfellas. Yeah, funny? Yeah, funny how? Funny, like you got
What's
that
so funny?
moment.
Yeah,
What's so funny? Like you got that moment. That was improv, and it was just Joe Pesci. Again, another Scorsese moment, where Joe Pesci is just the character that he has created is breaking through the page, and it's screaming to come out in ways that wasn't written. Any other examples you got?
I mean, you find it a lot in comedy too. You see them break through.
Comics being
a lot of times it's just bring your green hat.
Come on, I'm drinking.
It's just, I mean, but that's what makes moments so memorable because when you have fully figured out who you are as this role, you can bring in things that are great performances.
Yeah, talking about The Office, the Steve Carell and the 40-year-old version when he's getting waxed in his chest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's just going, Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, I mean, like why? Yeah. But that's because that's his world.
Right. Right. He was saying the things that he was yelling out were things pertinent and related in the heat of the moment to that 40-year-old version character.
Yeah. I mean, you think of so many things. What does he watch? Like, American Idol by himself at home, and he's so happy for Kelly Clarkson winning. But like, here's a moment where he's in pain, but he's thinking of his happy place.
Yes.
There's so much to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so that's the said. Now, McKee says then there's the next level, the second sphere, that's inside the character, and that's the unsaid. Right? I'm going to reference some of my notes. Now, this comes from the inside. And it's the character from the inside looking out into the world, right? So this is like the thoughts and the feelings that are formed in this level, in this sphere. This is about thoughts and feelings, right? So these thoughts and these feelings are what's beneath what's actually said. And these are thoughts and feelings that are held back. They don't come out as words. They stay as thoughts and feelings, but they influence the word. Right? So it's like the motivation beneath what's being said. That's the feeling that's hidden underneath. So he's speaking words, but the audience is looking past those words in the text and they're looking past the dialogue for what the actor and the characters truly say. What does this truly mean? What hasn't been said? What's the subtext? That's ultimately what the unsaid is. And so, for example, a character gives a line, they give a role, but the implication behind it, the feelings that are motivating that which is actually coming out, is truly what makes the character. Because, talk is cheap, right? They say talk is cheap. Like talk, but like behind and beneath the talk, there are motivations, there are desires, there are feelings. McKee has this famous scene, this famous example, and he says, if you've got two characters, like you and I, we're sitting here, right? And let's say you're a female character, and I'm a male character, and we're at a restaurant, and there's billowing, flowing curtains behind us, and it's candlelit, and there's beautiful music, and I say, I love you, and you say, I love you too. If we actually mean that scene is unactable. That's dead. That means that's dead.
Yeah.
Like, what more than do you get out of there? That's it. It's dead. That's it. That's the end of the movie. We said what we meant, and where else is it going to go from there? That's why then the unsaid is, what is the true feeling under and beneath that? Because if he's saying, I love you, but really it's because the motivation, the feeling behind it, what's unsaid is, I'm trying to manipulate you because I'm trying to avoid a fight or something like that. Now he's not going to say, I love you. He's going to say it in a different way, because what's underneath that motivation is different. It's not, I love you, and I mean it, I love you. No, it's like, I love you, and I'm trying to control you with this word.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's the unsaid. And
you
so...
love me? Good.
I love you. I love you, bro. And so when Emily Blunt's character, we were talking about Emily Blunt's character in The Devil Wears Prada, when she says, I'm just one stomach flew away from my goal weight, what she's essentially saying, but not actually saying, is like, this is the fashion world. Okay? And what you look like is more important than what you feel like and your health. So you better forget about your health. You better forget about how you feel if you're gonna make it in the fashion industry. And so that's why she says, I'm one stomach flu away from my ideal weight. Like, think about that. Like, stomach flu. Like, my health means nothing. I will go through pain. I will go through physical agony in order to look the part for this industry. And that is the unsaid beneath those lines as she's delivering them to, her co-star across from her, Anne Hathaway. And that's the unsaid. And that carries a lot of power in the acting. Can you think about examples for yourself in some of your lines in the past? Where there was a motivation, and you could be like, bro, the writing was terrible.
Yeah,
there was no unsaid beneath it. And if that's the case,
said what I said, and that's why it was a short film.
That's why it's a short film.
Or
any example.
Yeah, I mean, I right now I can't think off the top of my head, but I know that, a lot of films, and you'll find it in a lot of, fortunately, faith-based films. They don't get to that unsaid part because they feel as though that the audience isn't as smart, really, to figure out.
Is that what it is, or is it that the writer isn't as smart to put it into the?
It could be. I mean, I'm not saying that my answer is right. I'm just saying that in a sense, it's still,
they're not crediting. They're not giving
them the ability to be like, I can figure this out. You don't have to tell it to me.
Right.
You don't have to just get it all out.
They're cheapening the experience.
Yeah. And sometimes you say, to fix that problem, all you got to do is just show. Don't tell. But no, sometimes it's just the unsaid is what you need to do so that. You're not just giving it to the audience, but you are doing the work to be like, what is he? Could he be saying this?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And it isn't that you're just going to start writing random dialogue that has nothing to do with anything and call it brilliant because here's this guy rambling and this is brilliant. No, The reason why he's talking is because there's a motivator.
Yeah.
There's a feeling underneath that. There's a desire underneath that. There's a want underneath that. And the lines, although are coming out on the surface level as the logos, the written letter, right? There's something, snake is coming out. He's not calling him a reptile.
No.
He hates him. And he's calling him a vile snake.
Yeah.
Right? That guy on the other end isn't receiving that as, why are you calling me a reptilian?
Right.
No. He's responding to the feelings that are underneath. Now, that's a bad example, just using the word snake. But you get what I mean.
Anything. Someone's saying, what are you doing? And
if you really want to know what are you doing, then they're gonna turn and say, I'm mowing my lawn, and there the scene is done.
Right.
But if you're saying, what are you doing?
And all of a
you're
sudden,
not just asking them, what are you actually doing? Like, are you stupid?
Right.
Like,
what are you doing? And then all of a sudden a fight ensues.
Yeah.
You're like, he didn't have to say anything else. He didn't have to answer. He didn't have to give information. It's just, you start to realize, wow, clearly there's this disagreement. He's unhappy with the fact that you're doing what, you know what I mean? So there's so much that doesn't need to be said, but a lot is said in the unsaid.
And unfortunately, a lot of the unsaid gets put at the surface as the said, and then that's just on the nose dialogue. That's just on the nose, unactable dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And as writers, we have to understand that our characters you have to make them multidimensional, complex beings that speak like we speak, with desires and intentions, but we never actually speak what we mean. Nothing ever comes out of our mouths the way that we're truly feeling it in our hearts, ever. That's why there's the nuances and idiosyncrasies of relationship. That's why relationship is a process. It takes work. I think anyone that says what they actually believe is probably a sociopath. It's like
a lot of guys are like that. I mean, if you really think about it, a lot of guys.
But even that, yes, more so than yes.
Like sure. I know. Me and my wife's relationship. I know that sometimes she's like, "Can you just not say what you're saying?" Because I don't want to know all the truth. You know what I mean?
No.
And then my wife will be like so gentle and be like, "Hon, can you just tell me the truth?" You know what I mean? Could you just get it out? Because and it's but sometimes it's better to write a film like my wife, because it's you have. You can guide someone somewhere, but you don't give everything to them where they can do the work.
But I get you, and I understand, and that's the quintessential difference between male and female, and absolutely yes. Yeah. But even when a man speaks, yes, sure, you and I, as an example, like when we speak, I'm sure that what we're saying is what we're meaning, but there's always just so much subcontext.
Sure. Yeah,
there's so much feeling behind it. There are past experiences, there are memories, there's other motivators, there's things that are and it never comes out right.
Right.
It never, especially in an argument. Right? Especially in a heated moment, nothing ever comes out right. And you're trying to say it and you're and that's just, I'm sure that we're talking right now and we're thinking that we sound so eloquent and nothing is coming out right. Yeah. Nothing's coming out right. And the viewers at home are sitting there scratching their heads and saying, what am I listening to? Yeah. All right. So having said that, the said and the unsaid, and then there's the unsayable. Now, out of the unsaid is where the unsayable comes, right? The unsayable is the deepest sphere of character. And when you get to this level of writing, now you're like wielding tools of a master. And in the unsayable, there's that which is concealed beneath the unsaid. And in order to understand this, it's dialogue takes the root of action. And when it does, it is now that which is unsayable. So all dialogue, you have to understand, all dialogue is action. Anytime a character is talking, anytime that good dialogue anyway, good dialogue. When a character is talking, they're talking because there's a goal behind it. The reason why they even open their mouths or have action or have words, is because they're trying to achieve something. Therefore, by virtue of speaking, the word choice and that which comes out are actions that are being undertaken in a character-to-character relationship. So, like, for example, if I were to say, I'm going to have a line, any line, I don't know, like, I'll say, go to your room. I'll say, go to your room. Now, there's a lot behind the reason why I said that. The unsayable. So the set is, go to your room. So you're gonna listen to that, and you're gonna either, if you're a child, either go to your room, or you're gonna hold firm and argue back. It depends. If you're a 5-year-old, chances are you've got a million excuses, and they're all good. Mm-hmm. But like you say, go to your room. What's said is, go to your room. So, but is the father meaning that? Well, what's unsaid, the feelings behind it is, I'm frustrated. I am disappointed. I am angry with you. I am punishing you. But if you could get it to another level where the dad actually just needs a break. Yes, he's disappointed. Yes, he's angry. Yes, he's mad. The son has done something and he's punishing him, but there's more behind the character where the dad is washed out. He's tired. He's exhausted. And he's putting the son beyond just go to your room, but there's now the selfish desire where I just need me time in order to figure out A, Y, and Z. Whatever my goal is for that scene and motivation is for that scene. Now you're entering into the realm of unsayable. And I don't know if that's a really good example. We've got some other examples, but a character's truest nature can only ever be expressed when under the pressure of life, like conflict, dilemma, stress. The character, when is confronted by conflict, has to make a choice. Yeah. Right? And that choice is an act towards a desire that essentially defines who they are. Anytime an actor is pressured and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed, and suddenly they're pressed up against the wall, they have to make a choice, that's when you can see what type of person that character is. Mm-hmm. The example that I was using with Hans, it's a bad example, but it's an example nonetheless, is like you're hanging off a cliff. You've got, you're hanging here, and you've got another person here, and you've got a choice to make. Either you love this person and you're going to show them that we both go together, or you let go and you save yourself, or Thelma and Louise. Here it is. They both are looking at each other, and they can make a choice right then and there. Either they can give themselves up to the cops. One of them is innocent because only one of them murdered the guy at the hotel, the guy that tried to rape the other one. Susan Sarandon was the one that was guilty of murder. Susan Sarandon could have been like, go, you're innocent. You're innocent. But, oh gosh, what's the name of the other actress? Is it Julia Roberts? No. And Susan Sarandon?
That's a good...
It's a great screenplay. Anyway.
Well, no, it's a good, a trivia question for me right now. Because I see them both, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, anyway, long story short is they have this choice here when they're about to drive off the cliff. And in that moment is the greatest telling of who they are and who their characters are. Best friends, devoted to each other, unwilling to compromise on the choices that they have made. They're gonna go together off this cliff, right? Mm-hmm. That choice defined them as characters and ultimately defined what the movie was all about. When a character is pressed and pressed and pressed, the cops are hot on your pursuit, they've got you pinned against the wall. The choice that you make is the greatest defining moment of who you are as character. The words that you choose to say in that moment in order to get out or to execute your desire is action. And those actions, that action is that which is unsayable. It's not something that you write. You don't write that down and say, because in Thelma and Louise, it wasn't like, they didn't stop and say, in order for us to, be truly true to ourselves, what we must do now is drive off of this cliff. Like, no, they had choices of words where it showed their fidelity to one another, and it was the perfect dialogue, which exhibited character. That's the unsayable, right? Having said that, we've got a couple examples. Let's use examples. You go, because this was your example and it was perfect.
Show me the money.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
That's
constant until the character unveiled that he's fully invested. He's in agreement with Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, Cuba Gooding Jr. was trying to get out of the Tom Cruise's character that he was completely sold out for him.
Yeah.
And that bond was there, and that Tom Cruise character could represent Cuba Gooding Jr. could represent him, and he put him in a situation where he chose specific words to manipulate, and the choice that Tom Cruise made was to follow through even with that dialogue, and he made a choice. And it was to repeat, "Show me the money,"
to the point where he broke his character and was yelling on the phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was humiliating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's read or it's acted, fine dialogue creates a window that allows the reader or the audience, the viewer, to see through the talk and truly, genuinely see the persona, see the character. Mm-hmm. And there isn't a greater example than the example that we were talking about before we started the show, where Hans showed us the scene and reminded us of the scene in Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yeah.
The scene in Good Will Hunting between Robin Williams and Matt Damon, where Robin Williams is going through the files and he sees the bruises on Matt Damon's body, and he confronts or talks about the fact, his dad, and the dad being an alcoholic abuser. And he closes the file and he approaches, and you mentioned something, the camera work in there is so meticulous and so specific, because
the camera doesn't move until one particular moment.
Yeah. Go back and watch that scene and watch the moment when that camera moves forward.
It's almost as if the audience is putting us in this uncomfortable moment.
Yeah.
Like, don't go back.
Right.
Don't shy away.
And
go
Robin,
in with them.
right, and Robin Williams is getting up to him and close to him, and he's saying, "It's not your fault." And Matt Damon's like, "Yeah, I know. Yeah. Being a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
It would have fallen apart if he wasn't a believable tough guy.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
And then the camera pushes in, and it's so uncomfortable, and Matt Damon is uncomfortable, and he's getting closer, and he's getting closer, and that moment with those words, with what's said, what's not said underneath, like, I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. I'll be your father in this moment. And like the unsayable is, like the motivation is to restore not humanity, but confidence, like back in Matt Damon's character, so that he can finally
fulfill
that gifted person that he is. Like, and you feel that moment, and he gets closer, and then the camera work and all of it comes together with the dialogue and the great acting, brilliant casting, and that final release, the breakdown when he cries. It doesn't matter how many times I watch it, I cry. I cried today when I watched it. I was just like,
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it the performance was amazing. I mean, you think about Robin Williams, this comedian, to be put in that role of such seriousness. I mean, it was well casted, and and his simple line of just drawing closer and drawing closer, it nailed all three, and that's why it won Oscars.
Yeah, all around.
Oscars.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it set up both Matt Damon and Ben Affleck for the career that they have now. One script, brilliantly written, well cast, and character choices. I mean, the actors had to go beyond just the letter that's on the piece of paper. They take this script, their relationship, because this is how we started our conversation, the actor's relationship to the script. A good actor's relationship to the script is one that they are looking beyond just the logos, the letter. They're looking at what's beneath that, the motivations, the objects of desire, what's said, what's unsaid, and what's unsayable in every single one of these moments that they present in a conflict.
Yeah.
And the best marriages between actor-character and then an actor who is also a prepared researcher and studier and has a good relationship with what, the process that they go through and the character that they're about to execute creates indelible, beautiful, cinematic moments that they're not just beautiful for the sake of beautiful, they also have an impact on the viewer. Mm-hmm. And going back to psychology in the last episode, it literally has the ability to change and shift something in the person viewing and in the individual and inform them about something.
And be able to recognize, wow, there are people like this in my world,
right. And it informs us. It informs us about the world around us. It opens us up to an understanding beyond just our own personal microcosm, and it gives us tools for survival. I mean, that's what great cinema does. And we talked about it when we talked to Bobby Bishop in the last episode, just about music, and sometimes how people use music as a form of like cope and escapism, like self-help, like they'll listen to the words of like some depressing song and they'll put themselves in the corner. And, it's the same thing even with great cinema has the ability, those moments, those transcendent moments, has the ability to shape culture. We talk about that a lot. Cool. Any thoughts, any closing thoughts? At the end of the day, all dialogue is action.
Yeah.
And that's what's important for us to recognize when it comes to the said, the unsaid, and the unsayable. It's just up to you, the actor, or, the director, or whoever you are, but specifically talking to actors, to determine what exactly is the action that the character is trying to take.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking of a movie that really impacted me. And the character actually, I'll say the line.
Go ahead.
It's Give Us Free on Amistad.
Give us free.
And here's a man who should know any English. And, he says he's able, to find, that for me was brilliant. They're all just in shock, the fact that he was able to speak for himself. That was his freedom right there. That very moment of that line was his freedom, to be able to speak and use his words. It's good. It's great stuff.
All right. Well, we'll cut it off there because we're essentially at the hour mark. There's probably a ton more that we could talk about, but we'll cut it.
And there's going to be a ton that I'm going to read on the comments too.
Yes, please share with us your comments, your thoughts, questions, even about some of the stuff that we were unable to figure out at the beginning of the episode. We'd love to hear from you. Jonathan, you got a creator's tip of the week? This is our time for creators.
Let's see here.
Tip of the week.
Let's see.
Mine is get yourself a Hans in your life.
Yes. I got an app. We've been on this acting thing for a while, so I've been kind of doing some research, playing around with some stuff, and I wanted to find something where for actors who want to do self-tape, and I chose one before, and I found another one that's pretty cool. If you didn't like the other one that I mentioned, I have this one.
What is it?
Slatable. It's a self-tape yourself. So basically, it's pretty simple. It's a cool app that allows you to self-tape, but it uses it and organizes it, and it actually looks very professional. So it's usable for if you want to use that to send out to someone. So like it would be using your phone. And it gives you the criteria and everything that you need to be able to create a good self-tape to give to a casting director. So,
well, that's awesome.
Slatable. Yep.
Mine is, I actually brought it up in the podcast. It's Robert McKee's book, Dialogue.
Cool.
And I just mentioned it in the podcast, but I want to actually recommend it as a tool, as a creative tool for, it's not just for writers. The thing about Robert McKee is that he's very high concept. He's very lofty. His words and like the way that he philosophizes around the concept, writing and directing and acting and all of that is oftentimes actually tough to understand because he gets like really deep and nuanced. But if you pick up that book and you read it, I guarantee you're gonna pick up some really great things just about dialogue and translating dialogue and how dialogue is action and it'll help you become a better actor. It's a pretty hefty, it's a pretty thick read, but it's a good read. It's not as thick as his book Story, which is the one that essentially made him famous. But he's got a couple of books. He's got Story, Dialogue, and Storynomics, which is more so for businesses. They're all great reads. I think they're all fantastic. If you can't read it and you want to listen to it, it's also I know he's recorded his voice reading his book on the app called what's it called? I have the app. Here it is. Audible, on the Audible app.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he on the Audible app, you can find his books on there, and if you sign up for Audible, I think. If you pay like the first fee or something like that, or they give a free a free reading if you sign up for the very first time, and you can get that book for free on Audible. So there's 2 in 1. Audible, the app, and Dialogue, the book, and then you could just listen to it, and sometimes it's easier. Maybe you can listen and read it at the same time, and it's easy to capture the words. But anyway, it's a really good book. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. It is a tough book, but it's got a ton of information in it. Cool. So, cool. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so very much for joining us at the Harvest Podcast. Now, we did say, please include in the comments thoughts, questions, ideas, anything at all that you guys may have regarding the episode, and definitely help us out with some of the questions that we still have lingering. If you have short questions, though, you can also reach us on social media. You can reach us on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm at Twitter at xgarcia.
I'm at Jonathan Harvest.
And for any longer questions, if you want to just ask a question but you don't want to put it on a public forum, that's cool. That's fine. You can email us, and we'd love to read them. info@mountharvest.com or mountharvest@gmail.com, and you can ask us anything: thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, ideas, anything fun that you may have. Just send it our way. Please don't send scripts. Unfortunately, we can't read those. There is an NDA process that we like to go through and everything, just to kind of protect you as the writer and ourselves. But ideas, thoughts, comments, questions all day, please send them our way. Thank you so much to our show producer, Chelsea Cowie. And guys, we hope you enjoyed episode number 29 on acting.
Yeah, and please kick that subscribe button. Share.
Bang!
Like it. Thanks,
Pow!
guys.